Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from, where am I? Solana Beach. That's right, I'm in Solana Beach. Why am I in Solana Beach? That's a good question. I am in Solana Beach because I had to come over here and pick up 6 weeks worth of mail. But had an amazing day today. Let's see, what did I do today? Oh, first of all, I had to drive somewhere where the cell phone service was better. The Wi-Fi wasn't working wherever I went, so I was sort of like, okay. I had an amazing phone call with a friend I haven't spoken to for a while, and we talked about RV living in an RV and everything. Then was supposed to get on a Zoom. We started the Zoom off, the connections kept dying, so we ended up doing live video via Facebook Messenger, which worked out brilliantly. So I caught up with another friend and worked out some connections and that sort of thing, and then met somebody new and had a Facebook live video with them as well, and then had another conversation with another person today. So I spent 4 hours today either on a phone or on a video call, talking with people, connecting with people. It was just networking. It was amazing. It was awesome. Despite the challenges, we got through them, we worked through them, and everything worked out beautifully. Then I thought, well, I have to go and pick up my mail from Solana Beach, where my mailbox is, and I was thinking, and I actually started to drive this way because I was close to the freeway. And I looked at the traffic coming down the hill into Temecula, and it was like bumper to bumper heading north. And I was like, it's only like 2:30 and traffic is already like this. I'm like, So I thought, I know, I'm going to go back to this. So I went back to Sparkles, emptied out my trunk, which was full of stuff that I was supposed to leave in storage because I knew I needed room for mail. I had packages. I knew that because I had ordered stuff. And then I thought, screw it, I'm going to go do it. So I'm now here in Solana Beach, and the sun is setting. It looks amazing. It looks gorgeous. I can't quite see it from here because the hill's in the way. So I might go over to the beach and see if I can have a look at that. And then I'm going to find a way to meander my way back, because as I'm coming over here, the whole of the 15 north was like bumper to bumper to bumper, a break, bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper, a break. And then the road that I take from Solana Beach to the 15 was all backed up as well. And so I'm thinking, maybe I'll go find somewhere and have dinner first and then drive back. So that's what I'm thinking. But yeah, it's been an awesome day. I finally yesterday got to watch For Your Eyes Only. I'm in the middle of my Jane Fest here, so I got to watch For Your Eyes Only last night, the making of. Then I watched Octopussy, which was the next one, and then tonight is A View to a Kill, which is kind of not my most favorite James Bond movie. I mean, I love all my James Bond movie, but it's kind of like the least one, the small one. So review on the making of For Your Eyes Only. Jeepers. One thing that surprised me during the making of it, and I watched it twice to make sure I hadn't missed it. So I watched the making of, and it was like 30-40 minutes. So I watched the making of For Your Eyes Only twice to make sure I hadn't missed it the first time. Nowhere in there did they ever mention why M was not in the movie, and the fact that Bernard Lee had passed away earlier that year before the movie was released. Nowhere. They did at the end of the one before it, which was Moonraker. They did mention it was his last movie, but they didn't mention why. But it was just a very quick little snippet. But on this one, I was very surprised that they didn't mention the fact that he had passed away, because he had been M since the very first movie in 1962 with Dr. No, and he had been M all the way through. So we got all the way from 1962. So we did Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die. I'm missing one. Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun, and Moonraker. So the first 9 James Bond movies, he was M. He was like a major part, and they never mentioned anything about it, which surprised me. But the cool part is For Your Eyes Only, is that they had a new director. Well, he wasn't actually a new director. He'd been an assistant director a lot. And so they brought in John Glenn to be the director. They promoted him to director, and he decided that he was going to do something a little different. But they were trying to figure out what can we do for Moonraker, because Moonraker was this big, elaborate thing out in space. You know, we could keep going this thing, and things could just get ridiculous. But they decided to bring Bond back to Earth, and they did some things in the movie to kind of ground James Bond and show you that this was a continuation of all the other James Bond movies. So they had a scene in there where Moneypenny's putting on some lipstick and in her mirror, and then you can see the hat get tossed onto the hat rack, which was something that Sean Connery's James Bond always did whenever he came to see Moneypenny, throw his hat onto the hat rack. So there was that connection. Then we saw James Bond actually visiting his wife's grave, which we had never seen that anywhere, and because she was killed in Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1969. The death year on her tombstone had 1969, which I thought was really cool, that they tied that in together. But it was the first time. Now, we had mention of him being married before, but it's the first time that he had actually visited her grave and her name was actually mentioned since on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And so that was really cool. And it's the only James Bond movie that you will ever see the graveside scene in. So they wanted to do that. Ken Adams, who had made these amazing set designs and everything else, was not available. So they had to bring in Peter Lamont, who they also kept over for Octopussy as well. I noticed in the things last night. Cubby Broccoli did not want a lot of gadgets in this one. He just wanted it basic. Roger Moore having to use his wits and stuff. And I would tell you, they started filming on September the 2nd, 1980. Then they went into Greece. And, but first before that, at a party, when they were busy casting the characters and everything else, they were at a function. Cubby Broccoli and his wife Dana were at a function, and she's walking along, and there was Topol. If you don't know who Topol is, he was the guy in Fiddler on the Roof, which I didn't know until I saw the making of, For Your Eyes Only, because they mentioned it. And I suddenly thought, oh, okay, he looks completely different. And so she goes over and she's going, Topol, huh, Cubby, here, Topol, Columbo, what do you say? And that was how he got picked to be Columbo in the movie, which I thought was amazing. I love how people find their roles. They had they did this scene where the lotus that had been under the water and had been in the movie beforehand, so from Moonraker and all that, they had this thing where the lotus is parked. James Bond has gone into this house. Oh God, what did he go to do? It's been a couple of nights. But he comes back out and he's got the girl with him. And she's just amazing. She has beautiful long hair. She's the one that plays, oh crikey, can't even think of her name. Did I have it written anywhere here? I have her name written here somewhere. Carol Bouquet, who plays the Bond girl in this one. And so he goes down, and they're getting towards his car, and there's these two guys that see the Lotus, and they're trying to break into it, and on it has burglar protected as the sticker. It says burglar protected. And so they jimmy the thing open, and the car explodes. Like, it just blows up. And they went to John Glenn, and he said when the For Your Eyes Only came out in 1981, there was a lot of car thieving going on in New York, and apparently when it was shown in New York, people were cheering, wishing it was their car that had done that to the car burglars, the car thieves. So I thought it was kind of funny, but it sort of went into a James Bond Keystone Cops type of scene after that. So of course he throws his Lotus keys away, and he goes, I hope you've got a car. And she takes him to this little Italian style car. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's this little yellow bubble car. And of course he takes and the look on his face when he sees it, I mean, she goes and sits in the driver's seat, and the look on his face was priceless. And then they basically end up doing this comedic car chase through olive fields, and they were actually in Greece filming it, pretending that they were in Spain, and they did this car chase through olive groves and down these windy roads and everything else, and the whole chase is hilarious. And like they're going down the side hill, and they're going like this, and James Bond turns to her and goes, I just love a good drive in the country. It just cracks me up. But that's what they wanted. They wanted to achieve that, and they did that. There was one dark moment in there where basically James Bond ends up having to kill a bad guy in cold blood. And Roger Moore said he understands that James Bond has done that in the past, but Roger Moore, James Bond, doesn't like doing that type of thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But they wanted to show a sharper edge to Bond, and they did that with that scene. They also have, this is the one where he has to go on this massive rock climb up the side of this huge mountain to get this monastery on top, because the only way to get to the monastery is to either go up in the basket or climb the cliff face. And it turns out Roger Moore does not like heights. They said, oh, you've got to go and hang here and all this. And he's like, you want me to do what? Yeah, no. He said it was a lot of Valium and drinking at 2 a.m. to get ready for that, to calm his nerves for that. I sort of thought, the poor guy. The stuff these guys have to go through. They also had the biggest to date, what did they call it? The biggest fight sequence to date with no guns, but just fist fighting type of thing. And they did that kind of on a ship. So low area and all that, small area and everything else. They also found out that Caribou Cay could not dive and go underwater, and they had a lot of underwater scenes in this movie. So they were saying, oh, how are we going to do this? You know, we've got to have her going underwater, and we do these close-ups of her underwater. So how are we going to do this? So what they ended up doing was they ended up filming her and James Bond together underwater in slow motion with a wind machine, and then later on they went in and added bubbles. And I thought, pretty cool, because I would not have known that they were not underwater. So that was pretty cool how they'd done that. Then they have, what was her name? They actually had an Olympic ice skater come in, and she played this vivacious, precocious, not quite 20-year-old who James Bond walks into his room, and somebody's in the shower, and she comes out with a towel, drops the towel, climbs into his bed, inviting him in there. And of course, you know, James Bond he was 54 when he filmed this movie. he said in the thing he kind of felt like a little dirty old man at times. Some of these interviews are just hilarious. And so they had to film scenes with him him skiing, being a confident skier, skiing with this Olympic athlete. And so what they did for the close-ups is they actually had him tied to a sled, had somebody towing the sled so they could do these close-ups, and he was having to maintain his balance on the sled while she's busy skiing down beside him. And they showed they drew back the shot so you could actually see him strapped to the sled with a person in front and her coming down on the skis and all that to make it look like they were skiing together. It was pretty well done. But back to the rock climbing thing, there's a scene there where he actually falls down, and they had Rick Sylvester, who's done a lot of stunt work on the James Bond movies. He was concerned because when you do, he's a rock climber and you don't let go. But in the movie, he had to let go. And the rope was supposed to catch him and all this. And he was concerned because one of the concerns was the further you fall, the more force is put on your body when the rope jerks you at a stop. So he, of course, was concerned about the injury and the sudden stopping and all that. So they rigged up this whole thing with sandbags and troughs where they, so when as he was falling, the weight of the sandbags is coming up and slowing down his descent, so he didn't have that really bad jerk that could injure him at the end of the fall. So that was kind of cool. So it was really good to see that. And they said that that when the premiere came out on June 24th, 1981, that it was the hail of the return of the classic Bond and set it up for Bond in the 80s. So that was really cool to see all of that and hear all of that. And then I watched Octopussy after that, which came out in 1983. I haven't seen the making of it yet, but I can tell you this much. In the pre-credit sequence, it was actually shot, I think it was The Man with the Golden Gun. They shot that scene but decided to cut it from the movie, and they ended up using it as the pre-credit sequence for Octopussy. And he's in this little this tiny little sprinter type plane. It's this tiny plane, and a very good aerobatic plane that he was in. And they I'm pretty sure it was The Man with the Golden Gun they shot it for, but they ended up cutting it Was it Man with the Gold? It was one of the Roger Moore movies because he's the one flying the plane. And then they bring back Maud Adams, who was Andrea Anders Scaramanga's love interest in The Man with the Golden Gun. They bring her back as Octopussy in this movie because she was killed in the other one, but they brought her back. And they introduced a new M. So I'm waiting to see the making of it to see if they say anything about why they brought back Maud Adams as a different character and why they now have a new M. But I know that Moneypenny's time is coming up soon, because I know that she was Moneypenny for all of Sean Connery's movies, George Lazenby's movie, and all of Roger Moore's movie. And when they bring in Timothy Dalton, there is a new Moneypenny for his 2 movies. Then they bring in Samantha Bond for as Moneypenny when Pierce Brosnan. Speaking of Pierce Brosnan, so the Columbo's character in the movie of For Your Eyes Only has a love interest. His mistress is played by Cassandra Harris, who is Pierce Brosnan's late wife. And he actually came to Corfu. So Pierce Brosnan came to Corfu one weekend when they were filming the James Bond movie, and he got to meet the director. He got to meet the director, and he also got to meet Cubby Broccoli. And at that point, they started planting the seeds for him to be the next James Bond, because they knew at that time that that Roger Moore wasn't going to last much longer with his age and all of that sort of thing as well. And then they also had, they brought back, what's the guy's name? I think it was John Glover. They brought back him to play one of the villains. And they were actually going to use him at one point as Julian Glover. They had him, they brought him back as one of the bad guys, but they actually had him pegged originally to be a James Bond, but he was too young at the time, and then at the time when they needed him, he was now too old. So, but he made a really great bad guy, so he got into the James Bond movies being a bad guy. So that's how he ended up in the movie. So that is my report on For Your Eyes Only. I'm going to watch the making of Octopussy tonight, watch A View to a Kill tonight, and then I may even watch the making of View to a Kill so I can do 2 reviews tomorrow and get caught up with my reviews, because then tomorrow it is going to be Living Daylights, which is the first movie with Timothy Dalton as James Bond. So hope you all have a super fantastic sparkling evening. I am now going to go and brave traffic. The freeway out here on the 5 was not moving. The 15 was backed up when I came through, so maybe I'll go have some dinner first and then go for a drive. But anyway, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we will catch you all tomorrow. Hei konera.